Welcome to the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, a show that features conversations with the trailblazers, thought leaders, decision makers, and investors who are defining the gaming and esports space. On the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, we take a journey into this dynamic industry and start to decode and reveal who and what's making news. It's about connecting, and it's about sharing the stories and vision of the people who make gaming and esports a global phenomenon. And now, please welcome your host, student of the game and connector to the esports community, Tommy Knapp.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tommy Knapp, and this is an all-new episode of the Level Up Podcast presented by The Ultimate Gamer. On today's show, I have a conversation with Evan Kubes, co-founder of MKM Group and president of Rumble Gaming. MKM is a global law firm and management agency based in Toronto, dedicated exclusively to esports and content creators. Rumble Gaming is an industry-leading talent agency that specializes in bridging the gap between brands and the esports and gaming ecosystem. Evan and I began our conversation with a quick tour of Toronto and then discussed Evan's gaming habits while studying for law degrees at the University of Windsor and the University of Detroit at the same time. He then broke down the timing of his firm's and agency's entry into the marketplace and how they quickly scaled as investment in esports exploded in late 2018. We talk about big names in gaming that they work with, like Rogue, Lazarus, OG, Chaos, and Gizzy Gaza. A give and support philosophy to spur growth is what has built the company to nearly 350 clients in just 2 years. And I don't think they are slowing down. Please join me now for Evan Kubes.
So I was just up in Toronto. I don't remember, probably 6-8 months ago. I visited the Waves gaming facility, which is up North York area. Okay.
Yeah, we're closely with those guys. They're great.
Yeah, so the Toronto scene's pretty vibrant. There's a lot going on up there.
Definitely growing. You're definitely seeing a lot of new esports properties rising up almost every day.
Yeah. So are you from Toronto? Is that where you're from originally?
Yeah, been here my whole life.
I love the city, man. There's so much going on there. It's crazy because I used to be in the travel industry. So when I was in the travel industry, I used to take groups up there, and we go to CN Tower, we go to Sky Dome, watch the Blue Jays and Phantom of the Opera, all this stuff on Pantages Theater and Yonge Street. And so I hadn't been there in maybe 12 or 15 years. And when I just came back up 6 months ago, oh my God, it's crazy what's going on downtown.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mini New York in a lot of ways.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Just the energy. Yeah.
So is that where your guys' offices are?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple offices. So one, we do a shared space at 393 University, which is actually the courthouse. That's where we keep our legal office. Okay. And then the second one, our agency, is at 181 University, which is in the same offices really as Anthem Sports Entertainment, which is one of our strategic partners. Okay,
very cool. So what I like to do sometimes is just kind of go back to the beginning. And for me, it helps me understand and learn more about yourself and what you're doing. And then also anybody that's listening kind of gives them your background. So when we start talking about Rumble in a little bit, because you just made some big announcements, right? Or rebranded, it kind of all makes sense. So first of all, are you a gamer? Are you one of those that kind of grew up with a controller in your hand?
Yeah. Big gamer, been gaming my whole life. Won't lie and say that I'm a big esports player, to be honest. I kind of stray away from a lot of it just because when I go online and play Call of Duty or go play Fortnite or even League of Legends, I just get killed way too easily now. Right. So trying to waste my time with that. I'm more, I like to sit Friday night, close all the blinds and put on a really good RPG, Legend of Zelda, Red Dead Redemption, and just zone out for a bit.
Right, and just play. So that's for you. It's a way of kind of just losing yourself and relaxing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And that's the appeal I always found with gaming. It just gives you, especially with everything going on in the world, sometimes it gives a nice escape.
Yeah, very cool. So, but when you went to school, so tell us a little bit about when you're obviously a gamer, but your progress from school in Canada too is a little bit different, right, than in the U.S.
Yes. So actually, I went to school in both Canada and the U.S.
Okay.
So I went to law school at the University of Windsor as well as the University of Detroit at the same time and got my law degree from both. And while there, that's when I probably spent a little bit too much time playing video games than I should have. But that's kind of how I got exposure to esports in the first place. Specifically, it was really when the Dota International was really starting to get a lot of hype around it, a lot of big prize pools that really caught my attention. But on top of that, I came across this Smash Bros. Documentary, which Nintendo 64 Smash Bros. Was my favorite game at the time, still is. And it was a 7-part documentary that kind of covered the Smash gods, so to speak, and kind of their journeys through the pro ranks. And it was the rise, really, of MLG. So that really is what piqued my interest in esports. Never looked at it all from kind of a business or professional perspective at all. Just became a fan of it. Same I watch NFL, same I watch NBA kind of thing. Mm-hmm. After law school, started practicing litigation. I was actually doing medical malpractice. And I've told this story before, so if there's any listeners, sorry for the redundancy, but it was kind of like a Friday afternoon, just sitting on my desk waiting for the weekend when I was just on the internet, came across an article. Right. Article really just did a deep dive into the economics of esports, something that, I had never really considered before. And kind of looking back, it was a pretty shitty article considering there are no real economics in esports.
Right. So Evan, tell me when this was, because you're getting 2 degrees right now. You see Dota, and then you see the finals.
Yeah, so this wasn't too long ago. So I went to law school 2013, graduated 2016. So right after that was when really kind of this whole thing was going on. Okay. And I'll kind of lay out the timeline from when we launched. But when I kind of read this article, what really struck me was just the business model seemed really similar to traditional sports, in just the sense that you have teams, players, and sponsors as the key stakeholders driving the industry forward. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, okay, I wonder if esports has the same kind of infrastructure built in that traditional sports does. The article's talking about all this money going into the industry, blah, 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 blah. So I began to wonder, it looks like traditional sports, but is it kind of shaped in the same way? Right. So let's take Kawhi Leonard. Let's say he signs a contract with the LA Clippers or an endorsement deal with New Balance. Is he himself negotiating those contracts and drafting the terms? Probably not, right? He has an agent and lawyer doing it. I think in his case, actually, it's his uncle. Anyway, so I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, okay, surely this must exist in esports. Took a look and quickly found out that not only was there not a single law firm or agency in Canada doing this, there were really only 2 on a global level. So kind of saw this as an opportunity to get involved. Kind of at that point in my life, didn't have a mortgage, don't have any kids, crossing my fingers for that one. Right. So thought, great chance to take a chance on myself. So figured, I'll be sitting in a dark office for a while, kind of waiting for the space to explode. But if I'm ever going to do this, now's the time. Okay. So this was, I guess, I'd say near the end of 2017, or early 2018, something like that. Spent the next, I would say, 6 months just networking. Because something I found out really early on in just my research was esports in particular, at the early stages, I think a lot's changed since then. It's kind of like a very exclusive club in the sense that they're not very welcome to outsiders. You have to be very authentic. That's a word that's really thrown around a lot, and people who have entered the space inauthentically have been eaten up. Right. So my whole goal is really just to network with as many people as possible, just so that when we did launch, they would know who we were, and it would be pretty normal. Like, oh, here's Evan and Josh, my business partner, who I can get to in a little bit. Here they are. They told me about this. This is exactly what I expected. It was supposed to some of these other people who just kind of enter in the space saying, they're an esports consultant, whatever. Right. Which, to be honest, we kind of just did fake it till we made it at the very beginning. Yeah. Anyway.
No, but I think what you said is really, really, really important, because I'm having these conversations daily with people like yourself, and one of the things that a lot of people is that everybody's trying to do it too fast. They want it to happen like overnight. And you can't, just like anything, you can't become an expert. You can't be authentic to something in 24 hours or in 72 hours. You need to spend time. So the 6 months you guys put in, and you spent that time around all these other people that are in it, in the esports and the gaming space, and you're a gamer, that gives you the credibility to then come from a place of authenticity and actually be able to speak the language.
You're 100% right. So it was kind of this balance. We kind of saw at this time esports it was still very much in the periphery of social consciousness. It was very kind of irrelevant still. It was just beginning to get kind of big. That's when you start seeing a lot of these articles. People were talking about it more and more, and we knew it was kind of coming. And this was right kind of to the mid of the cannabis boom that just occurred in Toronto. So we just went through this, and I think maybe there's something going on here as well. So we wanted to be really prepared, but we were also battling against time because we wanted to be first to market.
Right.
So from there, essentially kind of prepared, got our website up and running, and we launched. We launched back in October 2018. Very kind of happy to say, we thought we'd be sitting in a dark office for a while, waiting for the space to explode. We were prepared for it. Didn't quite happen that way, and a lot of it was right place, right time. So to put it in perspective for you, in September 2018, so that was the month prior to us launching, there was about $170 million invested worldwide in esports. Fairly nominal number, nothing huge, but still notable. But the very next month, the month that we launched, there was 1.8 billion. That's when you had Drake, Scooter Braun, the new Overwatch League slots were announced, and a whole host of other celebrity investors entered the space.
Yep.
So it really just allowed us to I guess, scale really quickly, particularly because, as I mentioned before, there wasn't much going on the Canadian side. So we got a lot of press out of it. A lot of people started looking at us to kind of comment on the industry. And of course, we had just launched too. So like I said, it was kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing. But it worked out and we were able to scale pretty quickly.
And when you say us and we, that's MKM. That's MKM.
That's MKM. So that's MKM Group. So that was the company I started with one of my best friends from law school, Josh Marcus. He was, he was also working in corporate law at the time. Corporate and litigation and, very cushy law job, and kind of how to convince him a little bit, you can always fall back on law. That's why we went and got our law degrees. Why don't we go try our own thing? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, here we are.
Right. So give me an idea of some of the things that you guys specialize in, because one of the things right off the top, and I think you were talked about, is just representation for the athletes or the gamers themselves. And I've been saying that because I've been working with a group called Team Witness down here, who then went on board with Overtime up in New Jersey, and it quickly spiraled out of control. And right now, it's all in flux. Like 6 months ago, it was the best thing in the world, and today the team is all working out of the house. So some of that has to do with the pandemic, but they also didn't have representation. They did their own deal, their own agreement, and I think there's a lot to be learned from having representation in people like yourself. So do you guys do that, and then talk about some of the other things you do in your firm?
Absolutely. So fundamentally, when we launched, we separated our business into kind of two main parts. And this was really based on a lot of the research we had done. Because when we kind of looked in the esports industry, it became pretty evident early on, just the horror stories after horror stories of contracts gone awry, tournament organizers not paying up their players, things of that sort. So when we launched, we first had our law firm. Law firm, pretty simple. Contract law, player contracts, immigration, trademarks, things like that.
But right there, that alone right there is a ton of work, right?
Yeah, so that right there, we're just all the things that you kind of would have expected. You got players coming inbound, going outbound tournaments. You got a ton of corporate law, and then kind of something we fell into early on was really a bit of securities work, because as you can imagine, you had all this influx of esports properties coming to the Canadian markets to go public, similar to what happened in cannabis. So we started doing a little bit of that. And then the flip side was our agency, which is a completely separate business. And that there was primarily sponsorship acquisitions, strategic partnerships, and marketing. Things of that sort.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many people are on your team? Because that sounds like a lot of work for two people.
When we launched initially, there were just two, just me and Josh. But so to kind of continue the story, within just a couple months, we scaled, I think, to the point where we launched October, and by mid-February, we were representing probably 150 to 200 esports teams, players, influencers, ancillary entities, and the like. And then that's when, leading up to April 2019, that's when we underwent an M&A with Rumble Gaming.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you give us an idea maybe of a couple of those clients, or are you allowed to speak to any of them?
No, absolutely. So we represent some of the biggest esports teams in the world. We work closely with OG, number one Dota team. They just won the international back-to-back. Rogue, Lazarus here in Canada, Chaos Esports based in Atlanta, some top influencers like Gizzy Gaza. We recently entered into a partnership with Players TV, which is an NBA content platform. They do a lot of NBA lifestyle content, so it gave us access to work with and do collaborative opportunities with guys like Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Garrett Temple, and a whole host of others.
Yeah, so Players TV, that sounded really cool. I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit more just about that platform, because I don't know that much about it. And then what do you guys, so when you have all these clients, they're probably reaching out to you for something specifically, right? Like, I mean, you're not internal counsel in-house. They're contracting you out for something specific. So with Players TV, are you working sponsorship with those guys, or what do you?
Well, Players TV is more of a strategic partnership of ours. So the goal there really is to help bridge the gap between esports and traditional sports, because there is such affinity between the two, especially in the NBA with a lot of these young guys loving, they love video games. They play Fortnite, they play Call of Duty all the time. So especially now with COVID, you had a lot of them kind of at home, sitting, streaming, playing games, want to try and help them monetize those opportunities, build their brand equity in the gaming space, which will then build their brand overall.
Right.
So kind of further to your question, it really depends on the client. We undergo a very, very thorough discovery call with all the clients we work with, kind of nail down what their brand is, where they're trying to go, what brands they are trying to work with and engage with. And we do very, very tailor-made approaches to each one.
Yeah, so that's interesting. One of the, there's a couple guys, Josh Hart, Myers Leonard, that have been gamers, and they're in the space and they are authentic. So that's one of the things you heard, like with a bunch of these traditional sports athletes, like I've got to, be in front of my fan base. I am a gamer, but they don't really know what to do, whether it's streaming, whether it's producing content on YouTube. So when you guys walk into that with them and you have that discussion, obviously each person's a little bit different, but how do they monetize? Like, talk about that side of it as far as just the streaming, YouTube. How is that monetized? Because that's one of the areas where a lot of people are just confused. Like, how does, back in the day it was Ninja all of a sudden is making, and it was probably exaggerated to some degree, but let's say $250,000 a month through his streaming content. He has a huge audience, but how is then the money coming in and being filtered in?
Absolutely. So on Twitch, there's and other kind of platforms like that, like Mixer, there's a variety of ways to make money. Obviously, the number one and most known way is probably subscriptions. So subscriptions is when an individual will actually subscribe to one of these the influencers, so to speak, and they get some sort of custom access. Usually it's really just kind of emojis. And the price for doing that or exclusive emojis is really, it's $5. Typically, if you're kind of just a partner streamer, that split between you as well as a Twitch will be $2.50 to you, $2.50 to Twitch. Depending on how big you are, you can kind of negotiate that up. So some streamers are raking in $3.50 per subscriber. So when you're looking at a guy like, Shroud, who might have 40,000 subscribers, you do the math, and just on subscriptions alone, he's earning quite a hefty income per month on that.
Right.
On top of that, you obviously have sponsorships, right? So sponsorships are when a little brand will come and sponsor you to do a certain thing, whether it's some sort of activation stream, whether it's usually an overlay, a carousel, some shout outs, Instagram, social media posts, etc. There's also built-in advertising on Twitch. So depending on how many people are watching you, you actually have a button that you can press and an ad will pop up. It might be a trailer to a movie, it might be a Coca-Cola ad, whatever it is, and you'll generate revenue based on that. And then the final way is donations. And donations refers to literally people just donating to your channel. Literally donating to your channel because they love your content.
Right. No, that's a good segue into as well, because if you're representing a lot of these players and a lot of these gamers and athletes right now, and we're in COVID, and so there's always an area where they're giving back to the community, right? That's very typical of traditional pro sports athletes. But now with COVID-19 and the pandemic, there have been a ton of online charity events, and a lot of them have been supported by athletes and gamers. So how do you determine, you represent a bunch of clients, how do you determine which one of those makes sense? And in that case, they're really not making money. It's about them supporting the cause, but they're also potentially getting a following, right? They're getting additional audience and fans.
So can you repeat that question?
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking about the different athletes that you're representing. Yeah. So if you say Carmelo, I'm from Syracuse originally, so Carmelo's got a sweet spot in my heart because he won a national championship with Syracuse Orange from the basketball team. So if Carmelo now is saying, look, I want to go, I'm already doing some stuff online, but I want to support a cause. how do you guys determine what the causes are? And because almost all these athletes and celebrities are getting requested for these opportunities, right? Because that's a way to raise a lot of money and awareness for whatever the cause is.
So first, I just want to clarify. I wouldn't say I represent Carmelo.
Okay, right. Okay.
But we did do collaborative opportunities.
Yeah.
So with something like that, however, usually a lot of these guys have some sort of foundation that's either close to their heart or a cause that's close to their heart. And if they don't, we're just inundated with philanthropic opportunities almost a daily basis. And it really depends on what's going on in the world right now. So maybe something COVID related, it may be something related to Black Lives Matter. It might be something to breast cancer. It might be to domestic abuse, whatever it is. We're inundated with those opportunities, and we can usually find something for them to do if they're looking to do something in the gaming space that relates to philanthropy.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk, we'll obviously talk more about the law side and other areas that you represent, but I did want to get into Rumble Gaming as well. So how did you guys, was that a merger? How did that work as far as you guys coming together?
So that was a merger. To kind of talk frankly about it, one of the only other people that was really doing anything in the esports space at the time that we were was the Toronto Esports Club, which no longer exists. And the chief operating officer of that is now my business partner, Mike Cotton. Mike Cotton, a wonderful guy. We had reached out to him very early on through our networking to just try to learn more, about kind of esports space, what's going on, how can we get involved in the Toronto community, et cetera. We formed a very good relationship. He worked very closely with Len Asper of Anthem Sports Entertainment, formerly CanWest Global, one of the biggest media companies in Canadian history. They themselves kind of were building out their own agency. So since we had the relationship with Mike, we kind of came together and thought, why don't we kind of just merge, do this thing kind of together? And that's how it kind of came about.
Okay. And what is Rumble Gaming? What titles do you guys play? And do you have content creators as well?
Absolutely. So influencers, streamers, content creators, all sorts of ancillary entities, game developers as well, literally anything and everything you can imagine across the spectrum.
So how do you build that out? Yeah, because obviously there's got to be certain areas.
So I guess something that I should have added to this point, a big selling point for us as it related to going through this merger was because Len is the CEO of Anthem Sports Entertainment, it gave us access to a very robust media distribution network. So Anthem is in something like 150 million homes across 4 continents, and they have studios in Toronto and LA. So it gave us the ability not only to produce our own content, but showcase our clients' content across their channels. So when you're dealing with brands, anyone who's dealt with anything in the esports space related to sponsorship will know that getting sponsorships is very difficult. It's very difficult to get them over the line. And the biggest reason for that is ROI. And since esports is so new, to me, people say it's 10 years old, it's 20 years old. Maybe it goes back to Stanford University, in the late 70s. But to me, it's really 2 years old. Until the capital markets came and placed a value on the industry, didn't really exist. A lot of people disagree with that. Maybe a touchy subject. That's how I feel. So my point in all that is really to say that brands didn't really understand digital ROI. With the advent of Twitter, Netflix, Facebook, Twitch, Mixer, etc., these kind of metrics that you would typically use to measure media and kind of the value of it is lagging behind what already exists on linear TV, where there's 70 years of precedent, right? So while linear TV is dying, it's still highly valued because it's really easy to it's Nielsen rated, Comcast rated. You can get all the stats, who's seeing it, what demographics. If I'm a brand and I want to hit, let's say, 20-year-old males on the East Coast of the United States, I know exactly where I'm going to buy my media. More difficult to do that on the digital media side right now. Right. So for us, it's easy to say, sure, let's say we're doing a deal here. Let's take a hypothetical example. Here's New Balance, here's Kawhi Leonard, or let's say here's Ninja, here's Coca-Cola. Okay, we're going to do some sort of activation together. We're going to create some sort of content. That content is going to live on Ninja's channels. It's going to live on Coca-Cola's channels. But as kind of a cherry on top to that, we're going to take that content and we can actually put it on our own linear distribution network where you're guaranteed to have that kind of ROI that you're looking for.
So you have linear. You have linear. You also have OTT?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have teams in your org? Do you actually have teams that are playing in League of Legends or Overwatch?
Oh, yeah, of course. So OG, for example, they're top Dota team in the world. Rec Global, they have a team in the Call of Duty League, London Royal Ravens. They have a team in League of Legends as well. We had Boom Esports is one of the biggest Dota teams based out of Indonesia.
Right.
Really across every game you can imagine.
So are you guys doing outreach to them? Or are they finding you? Because that you're talking right now global. You guys are in Canada, and I would think you'd be strong in North America.
95% of our clients are in the U.S.
Okay.
95% probably, and 5% global.
Okay. And I remember what I was going to ask you now. So going back to what we're talking about, because you said Nielsen and Comcast and the traditional side of things, but if you, in linear TV, right now, do you guys use StreamHatch? Where do you go to find your analytics on the digital side so you can provide that information for your clients? Is it out there?
So we actually have a lot of different avenues. We do use StreamHatch. We use all those typical ones like Newsy that people use, but we actually have our own technology partners. So a great agency based here in Mississauga called Viral Nation. They're the #1 influencer marketing agency in the world by far. They've created their actually own technology platform called InfluSoft, which has API integrations across all the major social media networks. So we're able to actually put in all of our clients and partners into this platform, and it'll give us all the data that we need as it relates to them, based on who's watching them, and then breaks down by region, gender, age, etc. So it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And in your discussions with brands, when you're having those discussions right now, are you finding that, and I've asked this question to a number of different people, but are you finding that people are, based on what you just said too, like a lot has happened in the last 2 years in esports, and whether it's 50 years ago, and I love that was great what you said, because I agree. Like I mentioned Stanford, and you could say that was the first competitive game, right? Because somebody won something, but then, in the last 2-3 years, it's really just blown up. So the family first, I was reading something about family first sports too. So I wanted to know if you could talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Family First is a great agency based in Sacramento, California. They represent a lot of high quality players like De'Aaron Fox, and we formed a strategic partnership with them, again, to really help build the brand equity of their athletes, like De'Aaron Fox and Damian Dotson. So very similar to kind of the relationship with Players TV. Okay.
And I was talking to you about brands and activating with them and telling the story. And if you were having issues, if things have changed for you over the last even 2 years, where you feel like more and more of these executives and leadership groups understand, or at least have heard of esports and gaming, so they're more open to having these conversations.
Absolutely. So especially particularly early on, and still there's just so much education involved when you're dealing with brands. And as you can imagine, you can spend a couple months, particularly at the beginning when we first started, you would be educating, answering questions, building out campaigns for these brands. But really it's a marketing guy, he's getting paid a salary. It's not his top priority, so he says he's going to get back to you in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, turns out that, he was homesick for the last week, so he didn't really get to look at it. Oh, then he took a look at it. He's bringing it up at the next, next marketing meeting. Oh, it didn't get to it during that marketing meeting. Another month goes by, and then finally gets back to you. It's, yes, we're moving over. Let's get over lunch, start paperwork, and then they just kill it. Right. So definitely a lot of brands. Obviously, everyone's looking at esports now, especially esports and gaming, particularly because, there's no real traditional sports going on at the moment. So I'm very happy that the NBA is coming back. It's what I've been reading, so I'm excited for that. But a lot of brands have also been burned in the space, right? So it's kind of, you're trying to find this balance that we're seeing, where on the one hand, you have a lot of brands and companies that now have a lot of this big slush fund because they had all this money that they were going to spend in other avenues, which now, they're redirecting towards esports, where you have a lot of other brands on the flip side that just let go of half their marketing team. Right? So you're dealing with both, frankly.
Yeah. And where do you feel right now? You wake up daily, you're in it, you're in the mix, you're living it 24/7. Where do you think some of the more exciting areas are right now? And I was always hearing Wild Wild West like 3 or 4 years ago. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard it as much, but I just actually got off a pod where somebody used that term. But I'm looking at some of the areas where I think the esports and gaming needs a lot of help. I think coaching to me is one of those that it's crazy, right? Because when you talk about traditional sports, and I use this analogy of like right now, if I go out and play soccer or football or basketball or baseball with my kids, like I'm better than they are. Like they're 11 and 14. They're getting better, but I'm still bigger, stronger, faster than they are, and I can teach them stuff. If I sit down to try to teach them anything in gaming, I don't care what it is, I can't do it. And so most of those people that would be able to be youth coaches, and then even, going up through the college and pro ranks, that have all that experience. That doesn't work in esports and gaming, because in esports and gaming, typically it's really the younger dynamic or younger demographic that has all that experience. So what do you think about the coaching, and where do you think that's going to be?
It's you hit it on the head. It's the infrastructure, right? It's the law firms, the accountants, the agents. It's those individuals that will help support the industry, the psychologists, the trainers. It's all of that aspect which is lagging. And that's the area that I see that needs to kind of keep pace in order for esports to really cement itself as, the fifth major sport, so to speak, or the next big staple for an entertainment medium.
Yeah, you just
support for the industry.
Yeah, you just said entertainment media. So how do you see those two now mixing? And we've seen so much with obviously Marshmello and Travis Scott and in the Fortnite game. Where do you see music, entertainment, movies, and gaming all? Yeah.
So this may be a controversial statement, but to me, because I love esports, I'm a huge fan, but esports is a marketing platform for gaming. Yep. The publishers use esports to market their games. That's the purpose of it for them, and that's how they do it. And in terms of, how do I see, video games entertainment? It's a $150 billion industry per year, which is more than double film and music combined. So just based on that alone, right? Yeah. Just looking at those numbers, it's double film and music combined. Right. So it's already the number one entertainment medium in the world. It's just building out that esports branch of it. So people like to conflate gaming and esports, but they're two very different things.
Yeah, and my question probably was meant to mean more about the convergence of celebrities, athletes, entertainment, as far as music and movies and TV go, and gaming, more so than esports, like gaming, because you're seeing so much of that happen right now. And it just feels to me like it's becoming almost more difficult to keep those apart. There seem to be really converging together. And I actually think there may be another term that'll come out at some point in the near future.
Absolutely. No, you're fully right. And you're actually seeing it in Fortnite now, where it's becoming more than just a video game. It's becoming a social network almost, where people can go in their avatars and hang out and watch these concerts. Soon they'll be able to watch movies. Who knows? It's pretty crazy. I was with I sat through a pitch the other day of a startup company, and it was a virtual reality company in a way. And it was kind of, I guess, the early stages of Ready Player One in a lot of ways. We've seen that movie, where it was a conference portal. So you have your own avatar. You go to, the example used was a dental conference. Your avatar, you're walking to this dental conference, you have all these different rooms going on with all these different presentations. If you go up to a certain table, it opens up an audio box with everyone else at that table, so you can talk to them. So everything just seems to be going virtual.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just had one of the first pods I had was with Darcy Lawrence, and he was talking about it, and it just blew my mind, some of the things he was talking about. And then I just had a conversation with Kevin Wazalewski, who's the CEO of Origin PC the other day, and he was talking about Half-Life Alyx. And he said when he played the game, that night he actually went to bed, and when he went to bed, he almost had trouble remembering if what he had done in the game was actually what he had done in real life.
Oh, that's scary,
right? It's crazy, and we're talking about now. This is 2020. What's gonna be like in 2025 or 2030?
Yeah, that's wild, eh?
Yeah, so it's crazy. But I love all the stuff you guys do. And what do you guys have on the radar that's coming up? The rest of this year that's really exciting to you.
Yeah, so something really exciting. I'm not sure if I should be announcing this. We're actually undergoing a capital raise. We're starting this month or next month. I'm really looking to kind of grow and take this thing to the next level, make some acquisitions in the technology side, new hires, business development, all that stuff. So it's all pretty exciting. We're looking also to get pretty heavy into mobile gaming, which I view as kind of the next kind of big thing. Not everyone can afford a PS4, but pretty much everyone has a cell phone, no matter where you are in the world. So it's a huge opportunity. I think for us. So
big in Asia. So you see a lot of that coming over here. I mean, obviously we have cell phones here, but just more of the organization of it.
Absolutely. And, it's plug and play wherever you are. You can be on the subway, you can be walking down the street. Doesn't matter. You always got your cell phone on you, and people are playing Candy Crush and so on all the time. Right.
So when I'm talking to you, you're wearing, does it depend on how I ask you a question, if you're wearing the MKM hat or if you're wearing the Rumble Gaming hat?
So that's probably a better question for other members on the team, just because I view both as pretty much the same. They're pretty much united. I'm wearing both hats all the time. Whenever I'm dealing with a client, I'm also thinking through those potential legal issues that could be coming up, those things where maybe be able to support them on that end. But I'm also looking at all the brand opportunities, all the content opportunities, all the strategic partners that we can maybe align them with. So it's really, to me, they're one and the same, but they are two distinct assets.
Yeah, and it's, to me, when I'm talking to you, I just think about the amount of, when you talk about the legal field and law, and then you talk about not just being in Canada and representing, organizations in Canada and in the U.S., which have different legal procedures.
Well,
right?
luckily, I have my U.S. law degree.
Right, but then you're, like you said, you're also representing other organs that are in the Far East, that are in Europe. So I mean, there's obviously differences in the legal process in each one of these countries.
Of course. So I will say we're not representing legally. Generally, if they're outside of our purview, that would be pretty brutal for us to do. So we stray away from that.
Right. So it's more on biz dev opportunities.
Esports is borderless. It's regionless. It's really a global enterprise, and that's how we view our business, to really fit in with that. You could be playing in a tournament in Japan between a U.S. team and a Swedish team with a game that was built in China, right? It's what jurisdiction really applies there. So you got to think through these things and just realize that esports, it's not geolocated. It's just the world, and that's a huge thing I love about it. Yeah, man.
So is there anything, there's always a ton, and there's just so much that you're doing right now. So it's almost, sometimes I find that, right, in esports, and actually all the conferences I've been to and speaking to different people, one of the things I tell people is pick a lane, because you get into esports and gaming, and it's such a broad field that if you try to do everything, you'll just get lost in it. And I almost feel that way when I speak to you, and I spoke to Darren Heitner a week or two ago, because I just think with the legal field does tie into so many different areas. Right. So when I come, instead of having specific questions, like a lot of times I'm just trying to ask general questions of you, but those general questions don't really line up with, okay, let's talk about IP. Because if we just talk about IP right now, we could probably talk about intellectual property and what's going on in that space for the next hour.
It wouldn't stop, right? And you're talking IP on the US side versus IP on the Canadian side versus IP in UK versus IP in Asia. So it's this. It never really ends. Luckily, contracts are pretty similar in both the U.S., Canada, and pretty much across the world, for albeit a few instances. But that's probably the easiest part of doing global law. Anyway. Yeah.
Would you give any advice to anybody that has any, like they've got somebody that's not a Riot Games or a Valve or a Blizzard, they're new, it's maybe a small studio and they've got 2 or 3 guys. I think of Silicon Valley when I ask you this question, if I don't know if you used to watch that show, but when those guys, they had this great idea, it was an algorithm, and it was, and the big companies saw it and they knew it. And so they were already offering them big money, but they didn't really know what they had. So what do you do with
Put everything in writing. Put everything in writing. Right. I will say my number one piece of advice, especially when it comes to law, lawyers are very inexpensive in the beginning. It's when you need them that they become expensive.
No, that's great. No, I love that you just said that, because, I think that's one of the big fears, right? Like people won't reach out for legal representation because they're just like, I'm not going to spend the money on that.
And that's a huge thing. So when we first came into the space, right, particularly with a lot of our clients, they're pretty young kids, 16 to 20 years old, playing on teams. And young people generally, they don't have an appreciation for their own value or for the terms of the agreements they're signing, right? So we'd really trying to help them understand that, right? Because one of our really early clients, for example, was offered literally, no joke, a case of Red Bull. Right. Sorry, Red Bull. A case of Red Bull to promote their products, right? Just a case of Red Bull, like that's it, nothing else. And he had a pretty big following, and he was ecstatic, over the moon. He was a 16-year-old kid, and I'm getting a case of Red Bull. I'm sponsored by Red Bull now. That's awesome, but let's slow down for a minute. Let's not sell yourself short here. Maybe we can take this somewhere else. So it's really helping them understand that. So we've actually offered, we offer complete pro bono services as it relates to contract review. So I think today we've reviewed hundreds of pro bono contracts for prospective players that were signing with teams. So that was like kind of the way that we gave back and really showed them early on at a young age, just get a lawyer. Even if it's just like your mom's real estate lawyer, just get someone to look at this.
Yeah, no, I think so that's amazing advice, and I love the fact that you guys do that, because again, I think then if you help somebody at the beginning, you bring them in and you teach them, and you're looking out for them, you're representing them.
You can build and grow with them.
Exactly. So that's great. I didn't know you guys do that. That's really good to know, and I may already have a couple clients for you.
Please, always happy to help. Is how we can give back to this industry that's given a lot to us.
Yeah, man. So what did we talk about that maybe you wanted to talk about?
I don't really know, there's just so much going on. It's hard to kind of keep track sometimes. But I think we covered a lot on that end. The agency business is particularly exciting now. We launched our rebrand. We've been working on that for quite some time now. It finally came live, so I'm very excited. I hope people like the logo. And yeah, new website launched as well. I like to keep it clean and simple. And we're just, excited for the future. And I'm really excited to see, we launched in October 2018. We're not at the 2-year mark yet. We're currently representing over 350 sports teams, players, creators, ancillary entities. So I just wonder what, God willing, so to speak, what 2 years will look like from now.
Yeah. What, just out of curiosity, what did the rebrand, why did you guys go through the rebranding process, and who led that for you? Was that internal?
I think we needed a fresh look. We really needed, I think, a fresh look. Won't lie, didn't like our logo really that much at all. Really need something that resonated much better with kind of our clientele and who we are in the gaming space and our position really in the gaming space. There's this guy, his name's Drew Face. Look him up on Twitter. He does all my design work. He's a freelance esports graphic designer. Incredibly amazing. He does I refer everyone to him for it, and he kind of spearheaded that for us.
That's great. Well, I appreciate the time, man. It's been awesome to talk to you. I'm looking forward to seeing you, whether it's down here in South Florida or when I get up there in Toronto, when we can all travel again.
Absolutely, man. I would love to meet in person, grab a beer, and then chat esports.
Yeah, man. All right, Evan. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, my brother. Talk to you soon.
I'd like to thank Evan for sharing his time, experience, and knowledge with us today. As he shared his story, I couldn't help but think how timing is so important. However, preparation is the ingredient that will make the difference when that door opens. He was ready, prepared, and then saw the opening that fit his talent and his skill set, and man, he's crushing it. You can listen to Evan again now, and you can also find timestamp segments of the show, links to his social pages, and more information about his company, projects, and media in the show notes. If you enjoyed our discussion, please let us know. Continue the conversation with me across all social platforms and become a part of the Ultimate Gamer community today by subscribing at ultimategamer.com. We release a new show every day of the week, Monday through Friday, so be the first to join us for some outstanding upcoming guests and or dive back into the library of previous Level Up pods to hear some of the most brilliant minds in the space. Experts like co-founder of Cut and Sew and Zoned, Matt Hillman, TV anchor, host, and producer Aaron Ashley Simon, and CEO of Skillshot Media and chairman of the Atlanta Esports Alliance, Todd Harris, just to name a few. You can find all these episodes and more on the Ultimate Gamer website, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your pods. And finally, please rate, and review the show. It helps us reach the gaming community to spread the word and share the wisdom of our guests, as well as some of the most thought-provoking stories in the industry. Shout out, as always, to the Ultimate Gamer. I look forward to being with you on the next Level Up podcast.